July 14 edition of PFTOT, just 11 days away from the return of PFT Live. Until then, as you know by now, weekdays, for the most part, PFTOT. I'm 4 for 4 this week. I've never been 4 for 4 in anything in my entire life before today. Doesn't feel much different. Let's get to it. Sean Payton, Barry Jackson, the Miami Herald, dropping a little bit of a bombshell yesterday. The idea that Payton, based upon a source close to the former Saints head coach, would be interested in 3 teams, among others, but 3 teams were mentioned in Jackson's item. 1, the Cowboys. 2, the Dolphins. That one was a stunner. 3, the Chargers. Brandon Staley saying, what the hell did I do? The Dolphins and the Chargers really did stand out because first-year coach Mike McDaniel, we don't even know what he's going to do. He could be great. Now, if he is, the Payton thing goes away. But it puts extra pressure on him to not have a horrible season because, look, we've seen coaches go one and done before. Every time it happens, we've got some old stories that list all the times it's occurred the past 30 years. It happens a lot more than you realize. 1 year and out. 1 year and out. It isn't as rare as people think. And if Stephen Ross is hell-bent on getting Tom Brady, and Brady's choice is Sean Payton, and remember, unless you only watch ESPN or NFL Network, you're aware of this. Payton and Brady were in the process of happening in Miami. The Brian Flores lawsuit filed the same day Tom Brady announced his retirement. That kept it from occurring. It still could happen next year. And if I'm McDaniel, I look at it 2 ways. 1, it pisses me off and motivates me because why are people already speculating on my job security when I haven't even coached a game? On the other hand, he's a grown-up. He gets it. He's very self-aware. He knows what industry he signed up for. All he's entitled to is the money he would be paid for the balance of his contract. If they decide to fire him at any time, that's their business. Any head coach is at the mercy of that reality. An owner who can decide, if he or she so chooses, to move on from a head coach whenever. Same mindset applies to Brandon Staley of the Chargers. And, you know, I'm excited for what Staley can do as a head coach. He was very controversial last year with his overcommitment to going forward on 4th down. The bottom line is they didn't make it to the playoffs when they probably should have with Justin Herbert. If they don't make it this year and Payton's available to work with Herbert, and it's already being floated that Payton would be interested in the Chargers, it's not crazy. Look, Payton's setting himself up to be the target of a land rush. And what's going to happen is as we get into the season, and inevitably there will be good teams, which means there will be bad teams, and the bad teams' owners will start thinking, what can we do to make ourselves better? Oh, how about Sean Payton? And everyone will say all the right things about, well, there's no tampering. There were no discussions. That's baloney. Plenty of things happen unofficially. Plenty of things happen away from the public eye. There's plenty of stuff that goes on where these deals are lined up before the official process is activated. We know it if you read Playmakers, and I know it because I wrote Playmakers. In 2019, the wheels were in motion. The pieces were aligned for Sean Payton to become the head coach of the Cowboys. What happens? Well, Anthony Davis, then with the New Orleans Pelicans, decides he wants out of town. Mickey Loomis, who was the VP of basketball operations for the Pelicans at the time he was the GM of the Saints, he's still working for the Saints, but not the Pelicans. He didn't want to be the common link between Davis and Payton both leaving New Orleans. So that ended it. It was happening. It was basically a day away from step 1, which would have been the Cowboys firing Coach Jason Garrett. Step 2, engaging in a supposedly open and inclusive and diverse search. Step 3, contact the Saints, inquire about the potential availability of Payton. Saints ask for what the Cowboys knew they were going to ask for. Cowboys agree to give it. Then they approach Payton, they hire Payton, and the rest is history. So moving it forward, that's how it would go. That's how it almost happened with the Dolphins. It doesn't get to the point where we're ready to flick the first domino if the dominoes aren't already set up. And they were. The Dolphins knew what it was going to take to get Payton. The Dolphins knew what they were going to have to pay him. The Dolphins had an idea what it was going to take to get Brady. They're getting ready to introduce him as a minority owner of the team. It was all going to happen until Flores filed his lawsuit. So, Dolphins, Cowboys, Chargers, or anyone else that fits the profile. And there were 3 factors reported by Barry Jackson. 1, a warm weather team. 2, a team that has a competitive roster. I assume quarterback is going to be a big part of that. And 3, Payton has to have final say over personnel. If that lines up, somebody's going to win. Somebody's going to get Payton. And he's going to be back in 2023, barring some sort of unexpected development. He was almost back in 2022. And in hindsight, this just kind of looks like the most graceful way possible for him to exit New Orleans at a time when it felt like the window was closing. He wants to go somewhere where the window is open. And he, along with every other coach that has won a Super Bowl with one franchise, is keenly aware of the fact that no one has ever won a Super Bowl with a second franchise. And look, it was emphasized by the source close to Payton that he's never going to lobby for an open job. Well, you may not have to do it directly. If you just make it known you're available and they come to you, I mean, if they're going to fire their coach anyway, what are you doing wrong if they come to you? And there's only 32 of these jobs, and there's probably only 5 or 6 that would fit Payton's profile. If they come to him, I don't think he's going to say no, because he didn't say no to the Cowboys. And we don't know when these conversations started between Payton and the Dolphins and Brady and the Dolphins. Was it before Brian Flores was even fired by the Dolphins? There's a lot of stuff that happens that we don't know about. The sausage gets made in a very inelegant way because there's what we see and there's what occurs to make it happen. And you don't just show up and fire your coach and say, well, let's see what happens next. Most of these owners have a plan in place ahead of time for exactly who they're going to hire. And that's what the league is trying to get owners away from, having that decision already made as to who they're going to hire. So they truly do have an open and inclusive and diverse search. The problem is this: bird in the hand. I'm letting my coach go. Do I know I'm going to get somebody better? I don't know. If you have a plan as to who you're going to get, yeah. I'm going to fire this guy and I'm going to get Sean Payton. I'm going to fire this guy and I'm going to get Mike Tomlin. I'm going to fire this guy and I'm going to get John Harbaugh. When you know that, makes it easier to fire your coach. And most owners, before they make a change like that, one of the most important employees in the organization, you want to have a pretty good idea who the next one is going to be. And if you have that luxury, you take advantage of it. That's one of the issues that the NFL has when it comes to encouraging teams to have more diverse searches. But bottom line, expect Sean Payton to be back in 2023. Expect the story to drive the news coverage throughout the season, especially as the bad teams begin to separate. Bad teams with good quarterbacks, those are the ones to watch. Teams that underachieve. Somebody asked me a couple of weeks ago, what do the Cowboys need to do to slam the door on the Payton talk? And Jerry Jones is trying to slam the door on the Payton talk. It's funny. Jerry Jones wants to talk about everything else but the Payton talk because he wants to get behind Mike McCarthy, and he's hopeful McCarthy can fulfill the potential that they saw in him when they made him the head coach. I think he's got to do what the Cowboys haven't done since '95. He's got to get to the NFC Championship to fend off the Sean Payton talk. And even then, if they fall short of the Super Bowl, even then, if Jerry Jones knows this is my last chance to ever get Sean Payton and he's going to go somewhere else, and especially if that somewhere else is another NFC team that he's going to have to compete with, that could be a factor. So, interesting story that will dominate 2022, and it already is hovering over the season as training camps haven't even opened yet.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.